Well,
Is this
hello everyone, and welcome to this very exciting Civilizations in Review. I'm here with a fabulous content writer all the way from the Dominican Republic. Well, I guess now in Maryland, but originally from there, Anna. I'm just so excited to jump in and learn. Our co-host will jump in later when she's able to make it, but I didn't want to stop the great share of knowledge that Anna wrote. So again, thank you for tuning in all. I will read the 101 word intro. I don't get to do that very often, so thank you for that honor. And then after we finish that, I'll ask the first questions and we'll go from there. But Anna, thank you again for taking on this relatively well-known empire. I knew a little bit about the Seljuks before we started, so I'm excited to learn even more. I will read your 101 word intro right now. In the 11th century, the Oghuz family invaded the Abbasid Caliphate, creating the nomadic group of the Central Asian steppe known as the Seljuks. The scale of this dynasty prevailed as the beginning of a millennium domination over the Middle East. During the period from 1060 to 1307, the Seljuk Empire began the first Turkic Islamic colonization, driving out Christian pilgrims and capturing Baghdad in 1055. Some categorize the Seljuk Empire as barbarians due to their army's fierce acquisition that extended through Central Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. They further proved significant by defending the Islamic faith during the Middle Ages. Wow. Okay, so I didn't know a lot about the Seljuks. Clearly, that's just so fascinating. Let's just start with why you chose this empire. I find that a really fascinating question for most of our writers, and so we'll throw it to you for that.
okay? Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be speaking about this matter today. And I think Seljuk was kind of a random choice. I mean, I was just coming back from Turkey when we were talking about me becoming a content writer for Al Fusaic. And so I found it interesting to like, why not go ahead and since we're concentrated in the MENA region resource, just talk about one of the first empires. And they are actually pretty impressive. But the second awesome reason why it's because I was actually gifted this book at the University of Ankara, which really goes into details about the Seljuk Empire in Spanish. So it was fascinating to me to like whenever I translated the name because it's completely different. I was like, oh my God, I need to start reading this in English now and really see how it's different and awesome. So yeah.
We will get to this empire, but I just want our audience to know Anna is from the Dominican Republic, but lives in the United States, was in Turkey for a global peace building summit, and got a book in Spanish in Turkey about the Seljuk Empire and Turkish history. And that inspired her to join Al Fusaic, there's the book, and write this empire. That is such a cool story. We'll get to this empire and these details, but I am so blown away by that internationalization and path. And
and
again, finding something in Spanish language about Turkish history in Turkey, and you are a Spanish speaker. I mean, what a cool combination.
and I think it served me like a better purpose or like a grander purpose because I'm learning it in my native language. So and it was one of the first chapters actually because it talks about like the whole Constantinople period, and so I think that was really cool. But it was for the University of Ankara in their Latin American and the Caribbean department. So they even had a flag and the Dominican Republic. I mean, all of this was just. I mean, it was an amazing experience. So yeah, all that like interconnected in a weird way, but that was really cool.
Well, thank you, Seljuk Empire, for bringing this story out in
Yeah.
Mana. That's just so incredible. The aspects of intercultural engagement to be in the Latin American department of the University of Ankara for a Spanish book about Turkish history, and then relaying that information into this English article. We'll take a Spanish version too if you'd like, but I mean that is just so incredibly fascinating. And I know that will be a recommendation of yours soon.
Yes, it will be.
Look out, Alfuzaic audience. I mean, just that is so incredible. We'll talk these details right now, but I just wanted to begin with how cool that story was. And I've loved hearing it since you first told me while you were live and there in Turkey, but hearing it again
Yeah.
is so great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Honestly, I really had like a great time there and like getting to see like academics in Turkey and all the difference. It was just really like a great experience. I loved it.
Perfect. And I also love that in your background, you can see both the DR and Turkey if you do like a cool stretchy thing.
We're represented. You can see the US a little
In the
bit too. We're
Hey,
here.
all three of it.
We got
Okay,
it. Love
so
it.
now to jump into the subject, I had to take that detail. I had to.
Having so much fun.
Right. Um, a very militaristic society, and I think this is pretty similar with a lot of the ancient empires. Is the conquest and land grabbing, capital city claiming, XYZ. Tell
Mhm.
us about their military might.
And so they were kind of a different army, and in the way that they were kind of formed by like pilgrims and like sort of like regular people. So they're, the military power that they actually had was underestimated most of the times, just because the Seljuks formed in, like sort of a different way, and they were so organized, and they had administrators, and they were great, they were known as great builders, so they were able to like actually build like, military organization areas and that sort of thing. So I think that that was something that, was really, great about that part of, the Seljuk history. But like you said, like most of these empires and their power, but underestimated for sure. I'll tell you that much.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, the way that these empires continued either was diplomacy or conquest, and Seljuk very clearly is in the conquest camp.
Yeah.
Talk a bit more about the building that they did. That you mentioned that they're great builders several times. I'm curious on like buildings.
Well, I do want to emphasize on that part. So
Yeah.
they definitely did have a great military power, which gained them that advantage at the very beginning, to be able to conquest like, the like most of Central Asia, Anatolia, Iran, and that sort of area, because they were kind of like expanded through Central Asia. But they also did have a great diplomatic period at the end of the era of the empire, or I should say, so the empire began with the great military power, but it ended as a dynasty. And so the ones that were known as the great Seljuks were great builders, and they built, institutions for education. And so they had like an advancement in literature, and then the diplomacy kind of came from like the trade and merchants sort of speaking like that connection to Europe. And because they had great resources, having conquered all this, having vanquished all these areas, they were able to form relationships that were interesting with, for like metals and, silk and a lot of goods that, other areas or other regions were very, very interested in. So it kind of helped with diplomacy too. It had both, and which was really cool about this empire. I honestly loved reading about it. Like I could not believe a lot of the changes and, the influence that they really have today in a lot of the architecture that's already in Turkey, and even in fashion or a lot of different industries in general, that they sort of adopted from like the Persian cultures, Islamic faith, Christian faith, and kind of like they had like a great diplomacy, like with like race and different people and different religions and that sort of thing, which was really awesome.
Thanks for adding that caveat. That's fascinating. It kind of was their downfall in a way, because then the Ottomans utilized that
Oh.
diplomacy trade alliance to take them over. So
Mhm.
I guess the Seljuk should have stayed in that conquest side, and maybe not, but either way, fascinating history. Um, you mentioned a little bit about the trading aspect, and I'm so interested by the word tin road, because you usually hear silk or spice, but not tin. So can you tell me more about the tin road and its importance?
I think it was more about that. It was just that everybody was so concentrated, on silk and other goods, and there wasn't any like there wasn't like a big thing. It was just like they were also transporting metals and having like this road known as like, the area where we we're merchants and we're going down, and that sort of thing. So I think that it was mostly like they were trying to convey that idea, like we've got it all, like, it's not just about like different goods and that sort of thing. And I know I saw that, it was just a vast of materials. I mean, brass and bronze and just a lot of metals. It was just, you know a lot of raw materials and that sort of thing.
Fascinating. I mean, yeah, makes sense totally. I just have never heard that phrase
Yeah.
in any trading network. So cool, love it, easy. Let's talk about their key accomplishments then. That's one of my favorite sections, to sort of showcase how we remember these empires. A lot of them, especially the harder ones to research, have like one scholar. They did one book, end of list, right? And yet may have lasted for thousands of years. So this was probably an easier one to do this part of the research on, but I'm always curious on sort of what are they most well known for, what legacy and impact have they left behind?
From a lot of what I found, they definitely had a lot of the architecture influence in most of Turkey, having conquered that part of, Anatolia, which is like Great Turkey in Central Asia. A lot of other key accomplishments that they had was they were able to barricade from the Mongols going on all the way into Europe right before its decline. And so Europe was really kind of happy that they were able to, kind of sort of control this, because they were very spread out. So they did have power in like a lot of different places. And also, the Crusades and in at the very beginning. So I think that most of their key accomplishment, included that, and that sort of thing behind also the education and the architecture and the literature. They wrote great books, and well, most of the books on Islamic faith, but I think that was in building mosques. And so we still see that today. We still see that in Turkey, and we have even, Persian culture, and for the way that they used it in like sort of fashion, and even using this together silks and all that. I know that they were also transporting saffron, which recently I discovered that is one of the most expensive like spices out there in the world. So like, it's kind of crazy that they even had access to all that. So I think that definitely that, in my opinion, it would have to be the education, just because you started something different. And you began with the Islamic faith, but you were also inclusive of a lot of other societies, and a lot of other things. So it was just, yeah, that was to me, that the whole education part aspect of it and the building of that was remarkable for sure.
Yeah, you really mentioned, you basically just recapped your modern influence section as well in that response. I love hearing the sort of value of education. I think a lot of empires value it. I'm not saying they don't, but to have like built these institutions of learning and make that their staple, and that is their key accomplishment, I think is a really important thing. That clearly they're conquesting, maybe a barbarian, maybe colonial, whatever the words may be, in all of their military might, but they really also prioritize learning about the world around them and writing it down so we can learn about what their world was like. I think that's really, really
I think
important.
I think that was most of like what they were known for. They were like, oh, they were barbarians. They don't know how to like install a government system or have like a working society. And they did. They were able to have a currency. They were able to have trade. They were able to have an actual structure. So I think that was, they were underestimated in that sense too, because of their conquest way, how they started, came in and kind of just took over.
And the name of their currency, the dirham, is very similar to the modern dirham of Morocco and Jordan. Who knows if there's connection points there, but that's fascinating in of itself, that term at least has impacts today, even if no other connection is just a good name for money. But still, that's an interesting point.
I'm so happy that you said it, because you know what? I was gonna say the ram in the Spanish way, and so you
Hey,
then totally makes that for me.
we love it. Hey, we love it either way.
Yeah,
That's so fun. Incredible. Yeah, the UAE dirham. I mean, I
they're
don't know if
very
they
similar.
I don't know if the Seljuks made it all the way down to the Emirates, but either way, very fascinating.
They were kind of extended all the way into like the Aral Sea and like that sort of area. Most of the Almost to the most westernest point of Asia, which controlled most of Central Asia. I don't really know that they were exactly in that area, but they some sort of influence has to be, in right there in those areas for sure from the Seljuks. I feel so.
So I actually just Googled it because I'm just fascinated by it, and the Armenian currency is called the dirham, which is
Okay.
directly from the dirham. And obviously Armenia is right there geographically, at least. But it's saying, even just in this very quick Google of the word dirham, a lot of modern currencies throughout the Middle East is derived from the Seljuk currency system. So cool. Wow. Fun.
Well, yeah, one of the rivals Armenians, but yeah, I see how the influence definitely took over there.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Ottomans popularized the dirham, but still, it began in the Seljuks. So there we
So
go.
wait, so you just Googled it and it told you that it like the dirham is in various different places, not just okay, okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Wow, I
Cool.
did not know
A fun
that.
little currency deep dive here in the Seljuks.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow.
We started with a Spanish Turkish combo and ended up with currency.
You
Great.
know what I'm learning here too, and I thought, I was the one that to be here and just to be like, oh, I'm gonna tell you all about it. It's like, oh wait. there's always something to
Well,
learn and gain,
hey,
and that's awesome.
if a future article is the history of the deer ham, I mean, you are now the expert. Go for it.
True. Now you got me the curiosity, so there you go.
We love it. Incredible. Let's bring it back now, at least to the subjects.
Yeah.
But again, I
Mhm.
love these tangents because they're so fascinating on all of the dimensions. I guess I don't want to like assume that translating the Spanish book into English to write this article was probably the hardest part, but I will ask, what was the hardest part in sort of doing this research and putting together this article?
Yeah, sure. I think that, when it comes to like the translating, yeah, it was a little bit hard, but I think I wanted to take on that sort of challenge and just, I was excited to write about what I was reading. So that was one part of it. I think the most challenging part might have been honestly a particular area, and it was just finding about their allies and their rivals, just because it was really they were kind of sort of spread out, and a lot of the rivals were also their allies, like their Armenian Byzantine and that sort of thing. So I think that it created sort of confusion for me at first at the beginning, and so I think that was the one area where I struggled the most. But then I definitely did see how, the Crusades, the Mongols, the army of Diogenes, and that sort of thing was kind of like the rivalry where it really just became that split there. So that a little bit of like, more stuff like their key accomplishment that didn't have to do with a modern influence or, something that's like standing today, but more so like, what did you do during the war periods? And I think that with that, it was mostly just like the underestimation of other militaries that did not, know they're like, they're not even, they're like pilgrims and, they're regular people. They don't know how to fight and that sort of thing. So yeah, so that, I had trouble kind of like, putting that in my mind and be like, well, that is kind of something that, would be considered definitely a key accomplishment, which is cool.
Fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
Allies Rivals is not most people's hardest one. That's an interesting point. Usually most people's the hardest one is usually the modern influence because if they didn't really have a written
Mm.
language or build something or it's been destroyed since then, it's harder to sort of show that impact. But that's an interesting take. I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. Yeah, this is super fascinating. And
Ah,
obviously they fell to the Ottomans, so that was clearly a rival. But
that was, yeah.
I also think, in a way, and please correct me because I'm not the most well attuned to Turkish history, but the landmass of the Seljuk almost was like replaced with the Ottoman instead of taken over by, if that makes sense.
No, well, yeah, because they kind of fell themselves. I mean, they had a lot of quarreling over the empire. There was also issues with the lineage. Like at first it was kind of like sultan based on lineage, and
Right.
then they had that, they were like, well, no, it should be on seniority. And I think that the fact that they started out as an empire and went over to a dynasty and had these kind of like mini government systems installed in all of the big area that they had conquered was kind of contributed to their downfall. So whenever the Ottomans came, they were already, having a lot of issues amongst themselves, even, killing each other or, princes and that sort of thing. So it was the Ottomans didn't really have to fight for anything. They kind of just came and took over. And, their history was long too. So it doesn't mean that, it wasn't, but it was easy at the beginning. So there's that.
Just casually slandering the Ottomans. I mean,
Right.
that's great. Um, I guess it's not as simple as just a change in ownership or whatever. That's clearly not the case here. But
Right.
I was trying to get to the point of the Seljuks had such a large landmass, as
Mhm.
did the Ottomans, and so there is sort of that overlap's not the right word, but at least the Seljuks did it first, chronologically.
There is a symbiosis there. Absolutely, there's a relationship, and I'm totally like, I can see what you're saying. I wasn't thinking about it at first, but I can see what you're saying now. Yeah, for sure. I can. Yeah, the Ottomans, but
We'll see. I'm with you. I'm with
it,
you. One of the projects I really want to take on once we finish all of these empires is to sort of make a like timeline overlap how all these empires fit in history. So obviously Seljuks would be first, or not
it
first, but at least
not
before
first.
Ottomans. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I want to create this. If we have any great minds listening in of a like maybe color coded or time stamped or something, like modern day Turkey was all of these empires, and now it's Turkey. I don't exactly know how to do this. We'll play around with it, but I know the Seljuks are a big part of that, and so thank you for.
My brain is already doing like the bullet point, the ABC, the numbers, and then the Roman numerals, and it's
Oh,
like, oh my God, I got two lost. I got everyone lost already.
we'll see. We have ways to go. We have about 30 empires left to write, but that's
What
something I
I
really want to focus on.
how many do we have in total? Because I saw so many. There's
As
a
of right
lot.
now, 75, but I may add a couple more because I keep coming across really cool ancient empires in my own learning from each of y'all. So we'll
Find out
see.
about us.
Hey, come play with Alphusaic and write about these empires. Well,
Yeah.
as we wrap up here, thank you for playing with me a little bit. Any
Yeah.
final things you learned from the Seljuks? Anything that you'd like to share? I'm so fascinated by this empire specifically, and I appreciate you taking it on.
Thank you so much, friend. Yeah, I definitely do have a couple of like remarks, things that I want people to like just take on with them. One recommendation, and this is a little bit less formal, and that's why I'm doing it on here. But it's there is an article about their actually modern influence on art, which I love art, I love fashion, I love I think art is both architecture, it's culture, it's a lot of different things. And so there's the Met Museum kind of published an area where they have a lot of different artistic uh, how do you call it, graphics and things that were derived from the Seljuks and Persian culture and that sort of idea that they had. Another cool thing to mention also is that they didn't always have people who spoke the same language. There were different idioms. There were different religions. There was a small population of Jews, population of Christians. The Armenian area mostly was Christians there. And so I think that learning about this empire, writing about it, and having going through the difficulties of finding little details and that sort of thing was just as cool as realizing that they were also great people, that they were able to change a little bit of the perspective of these, like the barbarians perspective, and in education and literature and an influence, and something cool like art and fashion. So I love that for sure, and just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you. For everyone who goes to our website, and please read this article, two of the hyperlinks are from that Met Museum photo gallery. So if you're in the
Hmm.
modern influence section, both of the two, they're also hyperlinked right below. Roman numeral 6 and 7 both take. Oh, sorry, 7 and 8. I get my
Okay.
eyes confused. VII and
7.
VIII. 7 and 8.
VII is 8. Yeah.
They will both take you to the Met Museum, so you can see this cool additional pieces. We love to let our readers have a bit more to explore. So that is your homework, I guess. Everyone, go play around on that website. It's again VII and VIII 7 and 8, both in the modern influence section. Fascinating. Thank you for adding that tidbit. That's so cool, and I want our readers to go check that out. That's a lot of fun stuff is there.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
Anna, what a joy! What a cool story, and you connecting to this empire, all of these cool pieces, and brainstorming what this future interactive thing will look like. We'll keep working on it, but I'm excited.
No, no, I love
Thank you
it.
again for all your work. I'm excited for this upcoming book recommendation about this in Spanish book on Turkish history. I just love that juxtaposition there. And for all learn about the Seljuk Empire, please go to our website alfusaic.net. That's alfusaic.net / civilizations 101 and then Seljuk. Thanks again so much for being here. What a fascinating conversation. Can't wait for your next thing. Thanks, Anna.
Thank, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you. It's a great pleasure always talking to you, and going through this was honestly great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.